Hello and welcome to the Destiny DIP live Google Hangout. My name is Sylvia and I'm your host for today from our studio in the Netherlands. We are continuing our series about the body, and our topic of today is living on a sugar-free diet. With me today are a few guests. It's a full house. We have Marlen from Mexico, but now in Sweden. And we have Peter from the Netherlands. And we have June from the Philippines, but living in the United States. Welcome, my guys. What we are sharing today here is only our own experiences that we had with sugar. And it is in no way any advice or medical advice, so please take that in consideration. And before our guests are going to introduce themselves, I would like to share some things about sugar that I have collected, because that way we know what we are dealing with when we are talking about sugar. So sugar contains a lot of calories, but with no essential nutrients. And it also causes tooth decay by feeding the harmful bacteria in our mouth. For people who are living on a Western diet and not having much movement during the day, large amounts of fructose from added sugars get into fat into the liver. And excess fructose gets turned into fat, which can lodge in the liver and cause non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And when people eat a lot of sugar, it can cause resistance to the hormone insulin, which can contribute to many diseases. And because of the harmful effects of sugar, the function of insulin is a leading driver of type 2 diabetes. And there is a considerable evidence that sugar, due to its harmful effects on metabolism, can contribute to cancer. Fructose doesn't cause satiety in the brain or lower the hunger hormone ghrelin nearly as much as glucose. Because sugar causes a large release of dopamine in the brain, it can cause addiction in a lot of people. And because sugar causes a lot, that's what I already said. Because of the effects of sugar on hormones and the brain, sugar dramatically increases the risk of becoming overweight and obese. So having said that, we know a bit about what sugar can do and is capable of. The first question I'm going to ask our guest, June, what made you decide to go on a sugar-free diet, or what what made you decide to start reducing sugar?
I started, it's a long story, but to cut it short, I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer in the middle of a healthy eating craze. Paranoia, and after that I went into breatharianism, and then after breatharianism I decided to embrace all food items, so I became fat. I became 155, my weight shot up to 155 pounds, and even when I was pregnant before, it will only go up to 140 pounds. But without a baby at 155 pounds, it was really difficult for me to move. And so I decided to assist my body and decided to log my food daily and my weight. As I was doing this, there was this within me, I feel like I need to focus on sugar, but it was when a health coach, I'm a health coach, and so I just graduated from a school here in the US, and my health coach peer, who's a member of a health coach group that that I belong to in Facebook, or that I initiated to form, she asked me for the Sugar Blues workshop, which is usually part of our health coaching thing. And I thought, before I can assist this lady, I've got to walk this process. And so I decided to do a 21-day sugar investigation. And so that was my starting point for investigating sugar.
Okay. And this 21 days of no sugar, well, not only sugar, but within Destiny, we try to see what if there is an addiction, and if we have an addiction, to check if we have an addiction. So we just go 21 days without, and that gives a fair, preview on how you're doing with or without sugar in this case. So cool, June. And what did you discover? Did you discover that there was some addiction, or there was some something going on?
As my starting point was not from that point. I started to just look at my daily consumption of how much sugar is in the food I'm eating. And of course, you know, I like frozen yogurt. And so I looked at that. And I saw many things there that I didn't see before because I wasn't looking. So I saw different sugar alcohols, and then I started looking at sugar alcohols and started finding out. It's like a big, huge thing opened before me. And then I was confused, like, where do I go from here? Everything has got sugar. And so from within this confusion, I tried to utilize self-forgiveness. But what came up was that I had to look at the definition of sugar. And it turned out I don't have a real definition of sugar. It was like, sugar is there, and so I eat sugar because it gives my food, it makes it really tasty. And of course, I'm preparing food, so, and I'm a raw foodist before I was a raw foodist, and I used to like put in for example, I do raw cheesecake. Let's say for a whole 9-inch pan, I would use about 3/4 of a cup of agave nectar. And of course, it's supposedly better. It's supposedly better than sugar. Well, what I found out is this: sugar is actually a carbohydrate that assists our body to have energy. It's for physical energy, but we use it for both physical and mind energy. You see, that is where the problem is. And so, of course, because I defined sugar or agave nectar better than sugar, the white sugar, I use more of that and felt as if I'm healthy, you know. And of course, my behavior would tell me I am healthy because I am using agave nectar. But it wasn't about that, really. It was my misconception or my confusion about why sugar is being used in food preparation. Let's say sugar is supposed to give you energy. Now, I found out there's a lot of sugar in, let's say, fruits, vegetables. So how come I'm putting 3/4 cups of agave nectar in my raw cheesecake? Now, I only saw that when I investigated on sugar. I mean, I wasn't, but the point is the taste, you know? So here we are, sugar, we use sugar to sweeten our food for pleasure, but then the question is, why do we have to have a lot of pleasure when in fact what we can do is really make use of the sugar in vegetables, fruits, regulate it to a point where we can swallow the food, and so it gets digested, and so it will, the nutrients will go to the cells in our body. That's basically the common sense behind using sugar. The point is, we humans, we don't do that. We rely on a pleasure, and we get that from sweets. That's basically my...
Yeah, indeed. We seek pleasure in all kinds of other ways than just being ourselves, expressing ourselves, and having the pleasure of living. But we seek it in sugar to have these pleasurable feelings. Okay, thank you, June, for our first question. Marlen, can you tell us what your starting point on a certain moment in your life was for reducing sugar?
Well, it was also what you mentioned at the very beginning in terms of investigating everything that we are addicted to, essentially. And I realized that, well, I did like 21 days of no coffee and 21 days of other habits, which were not supportive. But sugar I was resisting quite a bit because it was my thing, you know, that thing that, as we are saying, it gives you that pleasure, that comfort, and that satisfaction that you don't know why, but you just like it, you crave it. So when I did that, I started realizing how addicted I was to it, because you actually go through that withdrawal, like you crave it when you don't have it. So I was like, how come I have this thing called sugar in either foods or sweets, or not so much sweets, but like more carbs, for example, like breads and stuff like that. How come I am craving it like a crazy? And I thought that I was fine in my mind, but what is my relationship to food? So it actually opened up a further investigation into not only sugar, but further ingestion of carbs and how it would give me like these emotional rights, you know. It's like when you go to the movies, you get a lot of sugar, and in that you create like an entire participation of the mind in the movie because you're in that sugar high, so to speak. And that's essentially how we live our life, through the mind and not in a physical level. So as you guys were explaining that, I see that it is a perfect like analogy of how the mind operates, that it's in essence energy-based. It's like that high, that pleasure, that desire we crave, but we don't realize what it does at a physical level. So we only crave that nice little sparkly feeling of sugar, but we don't know what it does to our physical body. So from that decision of stopping sugar, later on I went through investigating further about food and what is best for my body. So that's a very cool point of self-investigation that I also suggest to anyone as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I can really relate to that, because also I was stopping sugar at a certain point, but I already had stopped added sugar, plain sugar, and then I went to cane sugar because I believed cane sugar would be much better, but in fact it was the same as the plain sugar, so it didn't help me anything. And I didn't take much of it, but it was there. And then I decided to do honey, and well, even honey is going to make you peak because it's a form of sugar that goes into the body. And so then I thought, okay, now I'm totally free. I'm clean of all sugar. But why I was stopping with the sugar was because I had Candida albicans, and so it didn't go away. And I was like, what is happening? Why isn't it going away? And then I also found out, as you said, Marlen, the carbohydrates, those are the big issues when you do not use other added sugars. Those are the ones that are made into your body as sugars. So yeah, that's a really revelation when you discover this. But that's my part. I'd like to hear from Peter also. Peter, what was your starting point for stopping sugar?
Well, actually, as we share the same household for quite some time, and also I was not really addicted to sugars. At least I thought that I was not addicted to sugars. And my starting point was actually my health, because at a certain point in my life I was confronted with ulcerative colitis, which is a bowel disease, and which means that I had a constant inflammation in my body, and I really had to look into my energy management very closely in order to be able to live normally, besides the medication I took for suppressing the inflammation, etc. And the whole story about sugar fitted pretty well in that whole picture I was trying to make, because what I found out is if I had stuff with sugar, cookies, cakes, whatever it is, chocolate, etc., I always went into a high, but it was not very nice to my body to go in a high, because it gave me a kind of half shock. And then when I digested it, immediately I went into a dip, feeling very heavy, sleep, etc. Same that as you told before, Marlen. And the decision, actually we did it together to stop with sugar. I was a little bit later than Sylvia, because I was not really immediately convinced by the fact I had to stop with sugar completely instead of just diminishing the intake of it. I didn't take that much, but anyway, especially in cookies, etc., things I craved when I started to stopping completely with sugar. But it took almost a year before I got rid of that feeling of not wanting those cookies or a piece of cake or whatever it is. And the very interesting experience is that taking other kind of food with so-called slower sugars that the body assimilates in a slower way, I felt a lot better, because I didn't have those peaks anymore, and felt much more stable, and I was able actually to work on getting healthier and to stop my inflammation and really to have a better life. So the result was definitely very good for me. So nowadays, sometimes I will eat a piece of cake, whether it's sugar, etc., but normally I don't really enjoy it because it is too sweet. That's one of the things I found out, and maybe connected to what Jim was saying before, the taste. If you don't eat sugar anymore, everything has a lot more taste. So you really start to sense the flavors of the things you're eating, of the vegetables, etc., much more than what you do if you're eating a lot of sugar. But it takes quite some time, more than 21 days, to get rid of that. So you need at least 1 year of sugar-free, complete sugar-free, before you're in a stage that you can say, okay, I know what it does to my body if I take sugar. I know the effect. It is not an addiction anymore, because I can take something and then not taking it for months and months without craving for it. Then you know that you really have made a step in also dealing with the addiction. The addiction is definitely gone there.
So, Peter, you can say then that you were able to really feel how your body was reacting to the sugar, or the not taking the sugar anymore.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between the two. So actually I found out that I really felt bad when I was eating something that contained a lot of sugar. So getting in this kind of rush, like being pumped up with something, it's worse than caffeine. And becoming restless, not able to concentrate anymore, and that was not a good thing. And now life is a lot easier, because it's more a continuous way of dealing with energy. And also the hunger I normally felt was sudden. I had to eat something immediately, and I came into how do you call it, a bad, I lost the English word for it, humeur. That's a good point.
Well, your attitude, is not your attitude,
bad attitude,
how you
that's it.
feel.
Yeah. especially bad attitude when I got hungry, especially in my teens. That's the period in my life when I ate most of the sugar. I had that very strongly, and I was famous for it. At 5 o'clock in the evening or in the afternoon, I had to eat something because if not, I was not being able to speak normally with other people, and that's all gone. It's I can manage much better. The fact that lunch is going to be delayed for a couple of hours or dinner, etc., doesn't matter that much anymore. So it's really great.
Well, that's a lot. That's lucky for me because I'm not so strict with when we eat and when we don't eat. So sometimes he has to wait a bit. June, could you also feel the difference within your body, or maybe also your mind?
In fact, there's these two effects: the mental side of it and the physical part of it. And what I can see very clearly is that if I identify the mind part of it, release it through self-forgiveness, it then is easy for me to look at the physical part of it, which is then not being interpreted in the mind, but rather being looked at. And also, after releasing the mind part of it, and then deal with the physical part of it, which I did with through having I pricked my finger with this sugar monitor that diabetics use. I just started with counting my carbs for the day for whatever I eat, and I ate so many food items that it took me a week to even put together this list of carbohydrates and how much carbohydrates I used for that day, and to log that, because I'm doing like what I call living ebooks, where I log my food, my weight, and blood sugar. And so I said, this is not gonna last, because if I'm doing one day for a week, I cannot keep up. So I said, there must be a way of doing this. And I said, okay, these people, diabetics, they use this. Why don't I borrow their meter and then do it for myself? That is my way of kind of, while equalizing my relationship with sugar, it's my way of saying, while I'm doing this, this is what I'm going to use to be able to be sure I'm not using my mind to actually interpret what my body is telling me. Because the mind, as you can see, is such a big thing.
Yeah. So you're saying your cross-reference is this diabetic test, the blood sugar level test, to see if the intake of sugar wasn't too much. That's your cross-reference?
I use this as my cross-reference because it's the only thing available right now that I can kind of use myself. Another way of doing it is going to a professional to do it for a fee, and the fee is usually high. And so I don't want to go that far. And because if I'm doing that only once a month, I'm gonna also be led into a conclusion that might not be really real for that, for maybe only for that day, which then I will interpret as if, well, the blood test said I'm okay, so I'm okay. But I want to really be able to, for each food item, to be able to look at how it's affecting my blood sugar, my blood glucose level. And so I am really for a monitor that will work with the body in a way where it can really not cause harm for the body, because of course pricking your finger can cause pain to the body and stuff like that. So I'm doing this only in a very soon I'm going to end this. But what I'm advocating is for us to really come up with like a biostamp. They came up with this now. And what it can do is you can put it in your skin and it can monitor different levels of sugar, different many things which is being used in the medical profession most of the time, but now is available in the market. But I'm not sure if we can purchase it at this point. I think maybe later on. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that sounds really cool. But I also think that we should be able to just get closer to ourselves and be confident in our own measuring how much sugar have I, what was my intake, was it enough, was it too much? So there's also a trust point here, I think. It's great to have the technology, but it's also great to just be self-confident in what you're doing and whether you are abusing the body or not abusing the body. So I can see both techniques going along with each other, getting more self-confident in the whole point of how is my sugar intake going, and the technology. Do you have anything to say about this point, Marlen?
Yeah, I wanted to say that essentially what I see and what I've done is that I went past that time frame without any sugar, but then I simply decided to moderate myself into it. So it's more, the awareness begins more like when I'm in the supermarket or in a grocery store, like what am I going to buy for myself to eat? That's where I make the real decision of how I will ensure that I eat better, like I buy vegetables instead of buying something else that I knew that would only satisfy me for a little bit with the sugar thing. And, you know, it's also like spending money wisely, learning how to also nurture my body based on, for example, blood, my blood type, which I also suggest people to investigate. So it has been a process to mostly be able to moderate myself into the consumption of sugar, and being able to wisely decide, okay, I'm eating vegetables, for example, I'm eating meat, and my fruit, for example, that I still eat has sugar. So there goes my sugar of the day. I was mentioning that it's also a point of education in terms of yogurt. I like yogurt, but Mexican yogurt contains like 30 grams of sugar, and it's Greek yogurt, which is like more than the intake for one day. So it is unbelievable that these products are sold like your yogurt of the day, while here in Sweden, for example, it contains 3 grams or something like that, which is amazing. And it also involves then other aspects, like learning how to consume good food and not all the pre-packaged, like super processed stuff that contains a lot of salt and sugar and everything else. So that's also what I have mostly been focusing on, like how to rather cook from the raw myself, and not buying like processed, pre-packaged type of foods. So it's consumption awareness, so to speak.
Yeah, indeed. I think we all do that. All now in the Hangout are just cooking from scratch and using fresh vegetables and ingredients. That's a cool thing too, because then you can see what's going in. Then you do know if there is added sugar or not. So that's a cool point.
Exactly.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah, like in restaurants you don't know many times, and it sucks. I have been like, oh, I didn't know that this contained like a lot of salt or whatever. So it's also good to be that responsible with our bodies and what we consume as well.
It is, and it's also very difficult to go to a restaurant and eat without sugar. I did it 2 weeks ago, and they gave us some kind of appetizer, and it was a sweet fruit kind of thing. And I said, well, is there sugar added in it? Because I was not sure about it. And then she said, yes, of course. I said, okay, well then take it back because I don't need that for my body. So you have to be pretty aware of what's going on. Yeah.
That's a very cool point also to discuss, because I've been through the same. Like my parents are like, aren't you going to eat your cake that you love so much any longer? What is wrong with you? Like, what are you going to eat now? Well, I'm going to eat this salad. Oh, but you used to like it so much. And I'm like, I decided I'm not going to eat like carbs in that way or a lot of sugar, and that's my decision, and I stick to it. So it's really quite interesting when it comes to going to restaurants. So it's a cool topic also to how to make a decision and stick to it, or give yourself these little allowances, which I'm doing, for example, here. I find things that I don't usually eat, and it's not like I will become addicted to it because I cannot even buy them there, back at home. So I did try around, but then it's like a more aware decision and not a craving, as Peter was mentioning. That it's no longer that I am addicted to it, I need it, but I decide to buy it, I decide to try it, so to speak.
Yes, yes, for sure. And that brings us to another point, like if you are so worried about your sugar intake, or, well, maybe worried is not a good expression, more like if you're monitoring it so much, you can fall into starting to fear the sugar. Let's say you see the sugar as almost like the evil that caused your problems. And also June said in the beginning that there are that she was kind of having these emotional charges to the word sugar. So that's also the point of, do you fear the sugar? Have you charged it with emotions, or is the word sugar free of anything for you? Is anybody able to answer that question? Is it clear what I was trying to?
Well, it's more like a high. I would say that it's always like the relationship we have created at a mind level, and also obviously it creates a physical sensation. It's just like a drug. I've always equated it now as a drug, as anything that we can become addicted to. But sugar is like that same relationship that we have with the mind when we like thinking about something that makes us feel good, but later on we realize that it was really not supportive for a physical process of maybe, you know, dedicating ourselves to do something physical, like an actual work, an actual process, an actual responsibility. It's just that vague experience for a moment that we give into, and we believe that, you know, that's my right, that's my sugar, that's my high, and it's fine because, you know, it's food. And we don't question that. So it's more like a relationship of questioning that high, that experience, and why we need it so much. Like, why would you need it? And that's where the self-investigation also begins. So, yeah, there's also some questions. So
yeah, I was looking at the questions. Thank you, Anna. Gabriel asked to everyone, what perspective could you give on honey? For instance, that's recommended as this cool nutrient for the body. Nevertheless, at the same time, it has sugar. So would you recommend doing honey, for instance? Well, I did honey, and I still do little bits of honey now and then. So I think it's a case of use it in moderation. Anyone else want to answer this question?
like also just trying the meals without any honey. Like I've been doing that. Everything that I used to pour sugar into, I just drink without honey or sugar. Like I don't use any artificial sweeteners, not at all, or honey, unless it is like for some remedy that requires that for the throat or something like that. So it's up to you, and test out what you like, because there's also a little bit of we have to also indulge a little bit here and there in order to test who we are within it. Do you get lost in the honey sensation or want to crave it all the time? It's just a matter of like investigating yourself around that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for the question. Then I do another question, because otherwise there are a lot. Mario, she asks, what is your perspective to use agave, I'm not sure what's the right, agave syrup or date syrup, and has this the same effect on your body like sugar? Well, for me it does, but I have no idea if that's the same for everybody. Anybody wants to answer this question?
I haven't tested agave, but I have tested a raw cheesecake with agave. So we really don't know which one is causing the spike in blood sugar and how much spike. Because you see, they said that the fasting blood sugar is the one that you should go by. But then if, for example, you ingest honey, 2 hours later, you check your blood sugar and it spikes. So they said that the body will have to function in such a way that it can bring it down to a point of it having homeostasis, which is balance. My question is the body really created in a way where its function is to promote balance or bring the body back to balance, and we are the ones that's kind of spiking it high up, and then it's gonna bring it down back to balance again. You're gonna spike. We don't even know how much blood glucose level we have, let's say, for example, and then I can say, well, I feel good about this thing. What about questioning that feeling, that experience? Is this a mind thing or is this a physical thing? So that's why I went into using a meter, is because I don't trust my mind anymore, because that's what happened to me when I stopped eating meat. It was all good, and I was forgiving myself also at that point. And I trusted that feeling. I trusted it. And it doesn't. For me, I have to question everything. And that's the one that works for me. And so at this point, what I can say is that any sweetener that we use, more than the one that is suggested by the industry, is questionable. Also, we have to also question where it's coming from. I mean, where did this decision to give the body this much sugar come from? We have to question those things. Because what I found out, I ate this cookie. It's called a pecan cookie that has 0 calories, 0 carbohydrates, 0 sugar. Now, I pricked my finger and it spiked my blood sugar. No, but then the next day, of course, that's the fasting blood sugar. They say, if your body can tolerate this and can actually bring down your sugar back to normal, you're okay. I think we have to question that too, because what do we consider normal? Maybe we can do better than that, and we can assist the body more. Let's say, for example, by looking at which sweetener, for example, is gonna cause a little bit of a difference in our blood sugar level from that normal blood sugar level, so that then we're assisting the body to sort of keep it in balance, rather than the body doing its job only. We are actually supporting it in that way.
Yeah, that's a cool point, June. We have to support our body indeed, and we have to just individually see which sweetener, which sugar type is going to make us spike, make us peak, and well, we cannot say that in a general way. That's not possible.
Can I add something?
Oh yeah. I was going to say, Mario, thank you for the question, but is it still on this question, Peter?
Well, actually on this question and also on the following ones, because a general point...
Yeah, we can... Oh, wait a minute. We can just wrap them up, because Ruben is saying, when I again took ice cream, large quantities of it, it made me feel sick. Definitely a food to avoid in large quantities. Yeah, well... everything that's too much might be not so good. Then he's saying, when I stopped sugar, it helped me that I was working a lot of hours physically collecting grapes, and I was eating grapes too. that's also what I mentioned before. When you are on a Western diet and you do not move around a lot, yeah, you don't digest a lot. So yeah, moving around, collecting grapes is a great one. And then he says, I stopped sugar for myself. I stopped it for about a year. The tricky part is getting to know all the names by which sugar goes in all kinds of products, from bread to ham, etc. And indeed, that's also where Marlen talked about the carbs. That's a tricky one. So thank you, Ruben. And now I give it back to you, Peter, to just give an answer.
So, no, let's talk about sugars in general, at least from my point, or my perspective, is that you can live by leaving out all the sugars. That is what I'm experiencing, and also what Ruben says here. He stopped for a year. Well, I stopped for longer than a year, eating, not taking account the carbs, of course, but the direct sugars. And what I found out for myself is it is possible to live without. So there's no need to add sugars unless you say, I like the taste of it. And that is the point I arrived to, that, okay, whether it is honey or whatever other kind of sweetener you're using, it is just to complement the taste of a cake or whatever it is. But there's definitely no need to have it. And what I also found out is that you can make a lot of nice cookies, a lot of nice cakes, a lot of nice food without adding those sugars. And again, coming back to what I said before, it even improves the taste, because sugar covers up a lot of refinement in the taste of the ingredients of the product you're eating. So actually, in the industry, for especially for a lot of foods that are prepared and pre-processed food, processed foods, they use sugar and salt to cover up bad taste or to regulate the taste. And that is also different from country to country, but that's a different story. So sugar is definitely used in order to cover up things and also to work towards a general kind of taste. And you see that with people that say they don't like a lot of different types of food, with just a couple of things. They're aiming mainly at a specific or a couple of basic tastes, including a lot of sugar. So that's safe, and that's something they know about, and they're probably also longing constantly for the highs delivered by the sugar. So, but from my perspective, again, it is possible to stop completely with that, and only if you're really clean and also convinced from the facts by experience that you don't need sugar, then you can start again consuming sugar in low quantities, but in a different way, because you see it as a complement in a specific food to give it a specific taste, and nothing else, nothing more, nothing less than that.
Yeah, indeed. And I was also thinking about the documentary called Sugar, the Bitter Truth. And in that documentary, Dr. Lustig is explaining also that, for instance, in the sodas, they use salt, as you said, Peter, to cover, but they use salt in combination with caffeine. And that makes you no longer be able to monitor your cravings and your food intake. So let's say a kid is taking a can of soda, and then it's going to eat, well, a McDonald's dinner, then this kid can eat twice as much as they would normally do when they had just a bottle of water. So that's also a thing that, and that's also the question or the comment Ruben makes here. The supermarket is full of products with a lot of sugars. It seems like supermarkets are pushing for diabetes. Yeah. It looks like the industry, if it's ignorance or it's, well, they know what they're doing, but it looks like there is some sort of agenda. And I don't want to sound like
No, but it's just for
conspiracy.
profit as well. I mean, there's
Yeah.
you create addiction with sugar, and what happens is that there's a medical industry as well. So the more sick people, the more diabetic people, and with all of these illnesses that actually stem not only from sugar intake but wheat as well, which has been a hangout before.
Yeah.
You create sick people, and you keep the medical industry going. So that's how we cannot isolate this problem or see it as a little thing, because it is definitely in all products, and through norms, through laws, it's been, for example, augmented in certain products that before weren't as sugary, and it's just for the same purpose. So it is part of the self-education of why one decides not to eat sugar, because as Peter was also mentioning, you become more sensitive to that, and so if you spot or you can come to eat something with sugar, then you will make an aware decision of eating it or not eating it, because you know what it does to your body. But then you will also not become like so used to that sugary taste that everything else will just be tasteless, and as such you will consume all the products that are currently being sold and promoted a lot, which is everything that's junk food. That's a lot of sugar, that's a lot of salt, that's a lot of carbs. All of that is not good for our body. So I definitely, as a last point, is self-education. Investigate the type of blood that you have, the type of body, your activities. Visit a professional to do this as well, because in the making the right decisions of what you eat, you will not only feel better, but you will not feed your mind that much. And I also can attest this, like when you really eat a lot of sugar, you become more emotional, more volatile, more moody, as also Peter was mentioning. So this is something that goes hand in hand with one's physical body process, in essence, supporting ourselves, our physical body. And also because you slow down, you're not in that sugar high, you're able to spot your thoughts, your emotions with more ease as well. And you stop being an addict to it, which is awesome as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Being an addict isn't fun indeed. And I was also thinking, especially in the English language, there are so many words that are referring to the sweetness of sugar. What did you say earlier, Marlen? Sweetie pie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything is like linked with love, like because
Yeah,
I also
love
had that
and
relationship
sweetness.
of like the comfort, like sweetie pie and buttercup and honey and sweet love and whatever is sweet love. Everything is like, so you literally create an image of the heart that is made of chocolate or marshmallow or something like that. I mean, look at what they give in Valentine's Day, for example. It's all sugar. So that connection we've made of comfort, of warm or of fussy experiences to sugar, chocolates, and all of that. So that's why it's so important and relevant, I consider, to investigate this relationship of sugar and this warmth, positive experience. And instead of only remaining in that idea, start looking at what it does to our physical body. And I also suggest watching the hangout on the diabetes process that Paul is walking, which is also very relevant and a cautionary tale for all of us in terms of sugar as well.
Yes, it is.
Sylvia,
Yeah.
there is actually also in the Dutch language a thing that refers to sugar, to sweet, not in the typical English things like
Being
honey.
sweet.
Actually, to keep the children sweet. You remember that?
Yeah.
Kinderen zoet houden. So there is something that definitely refers to that. So to keep giving sweets to the children just to keep them quiet, etc. The result is actually the opposite. But anyway, that's the idea behind it. And it even goes further than that, because my employer very regularly, not the last couple of months actually, but very regularly he either he came in and was looking for other people having candies, whatever it is, or he was the one that was buying enormous quantities of candies, sugary things, etc. Also for the holidays, and giving them for Christmas to everybody, sweets and that kind of stuff, as if it is a kind of automatic thing into our culture that you need to keep also your personnel, your employees, sweet or just happy and giving them sugar. So that's
Peter, there's another point, because a lot of employers also have this Friday night drinking a beer together. Well, at least in Holland they do. At the end of the week, celebrating, oh, we slaves are going to get our weekend. And that's, well, when we look at alcohol again, it's ethanol, and it's also a form of sugar. So it's not much different than the candies your boss was throwing around, Peter.
Yeah, that's right.
Ruben has another comment, and he said, "When I stopped sugar, I felt like reality slowed down. That was cool." Yeah, that's also what was mentioned before. That it's also something that is altering your mind. So when you take that away, you will be more aware. That's for sure. Yeah, cool, Ruben. Yeah, nice. I'm going to delete the question. And another thing, what I was going to ask is, how could we, what can we do to see that our future generation is not going to be more obese than it already is? Because we can see that every generation after generation gets more obese than the previous one. So what do we need to stop this?
Create awareness. Make people aware of the fact that there is more sugar in the products that even you can find on the product information, because like Marlen already said before, there's difference between countries, but also within the European community, rules have been changed so that not all the sugars have to be mentioned on the label. Just to help industry to whatever make more profit, and that is a result of the very strong lobby of lobbyists within the European Commission that is in Brussels, and just a result of the big corporates having a lot of influence on also the rules that are applied. So make people aware that even if you're buying things that say very low in sugar and or no sugars added, etc., that it might not be completely true. Just as an example, and also give people our experiences, like we do in this hangout, on how to live, producing our meals from scratch and not using processed food, which is important, so we can monitor really what kind of ingredients we are using and we are eating.
Yeah, so it comes down to education, and already in the homes of children, and not only at school, but already in the house, in the homes of people. Yeah, June, do you have anything to add to that?
You know, just one thing, because when I was investigating the blood sugar level, before I slept that night, I didn't eat before I slept. And so I took my blood sugar and I got a result. And then after I woke up, it changed. So is it the food, or is it our mind, or is it both? And I'd leave you with that question for you to be able to really log or be aware of whatever you're eating, because it really assisted me. And seeing that whatever I believe, I have to first release the energetic part of it, or the mind part of it, or the bias within it, and then really look at the physical aspect of it. Actually, my friend B, he wrote about the microchip. You know, it's very interesting. That's something that can monitor the body's functioning before you even go to the hospital. I mean, for me that makes sense, but I don't know for everyone else, because right now I'm testing myself, and I don't want to keep testing and pricking my finger. I want something that is assisting the body that does not need that.
Yeah, well, in time, I'm sure there will be discovered many other things, technologies to assist with that. Well, I think we have gone through a lot of topics within the topic, and we're about to just wrap the whole thing up. Is there anything you want to say, Marlen, as last comment?
Yes, I would like to say to investigate for yourself and to test also what your body can handle, what your body enjoys, not from the mind perspective, but meaning like that sensation of I fed myself well, I have a good level of energy throughout the day for my daily activities, and I see that I don't go through that spike of up and down in the roller coaster of either carbs or sugar, for example. And just learning how to eat more like obviously like self-cooked meals, and learning to eat something that will support your body and not your mind, which is also like a shift that we have to create also in our day-to-day living, like doing not only what we merely like because of how it makes us feel, but what is supportive for our process, our bodies, in terms of becoming a human being that is stable, reliable, healthy, and with sufficient awareness of everything that goes inside, because that's like a basic point of awareness that we can all take on as self-education as well. There's lots of documentaries, and questions can be also placed here, so that we can also either investigate further, because this is also the point of the Hangouts, to educate ourselves, each other, and to expand that awareness, because not many people are even aware of the amount of sugar they're eating, and that begins with us testing out the point first and then sharing it with others.
Yeah, thank you, Marlen. Peter, some last words?
Well, actually, I wanted to close with an example that is related to sugar that actually shocked me a couple of years ago. A story of a colleague of mine, which is who died in his early 50s, and he told me that when he was a small child, he got free Coca-Cola on the beaches of Argentina, where he was living as a child. And that was the way of Coca-Cola, the industry, to get small children already addicted to sugar, to the Coca-Cola product in a very early stage. And he was really addicted in such a bad way that he had to go through hell for his health. And at a certain point, he was a very obese man. He lost a lot of weight, but it was too much strain for his body, and he suddenly died from one day to the other during his work, because his body probably was not able to support all these kind of changes. So definitely it is something even nested into our cultures, maybe also stronger in the South American countries, where apparently there's room to do this kind of experiments. But we again have to make people aware that these things happen, and we have to watch out for that.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. June, the final last words?
I would advocate for everyone to really be aware. I found out that I'm not even aware of what I ate yesterday. Or sometimes I'm not even aware of what I ate this morning. So that really assisted me. I mean, because without awareness, how can you change your way of eating if you're not even aware of what you ate this morning?
Yeah, that's a really cool point, June. Maybe that's the best last words to finish with, to be aware of our body and know what you put in, because that's also what you get. Well, I'd like to thank my guest for today, and I'd like you to thank you for watching this Hangout. I will place some links to cool blogs or documentaries in the description box. There's also a link to the Dip Light course we provide from at Destiny. It's a really cool free course, so check it out. And next week we will see Anna again. Thank you and bye.
Thank you, bye.